It's been about a week since the final vision came out, so if you're here, I assume you want to be spoiled. You have been warned. Now let's get into all the crazy stuff. Okay, so let's do a general overview of the changes and then we'll get into the details later because there is so much here. First of all, new enemies. Too many to mention, a lot of new bosses. We'll jump into that when we start talking about the new areas. New companions. There is 5, I repeat 5 new companions found so far. 1 is a temporary companion, the other 4 are recruitable. The new companions are Philippe, Asta, Lyle, Spine, and the most recently found secret companion, Spider. We'll chat about these guys individually later on, but for now, let's keep moving. There are a ton of new areas to explore, but we'll separate them into their apartments just to make things a little easier. So first of all, apartment number 12, Sybil's old apartment on floor 1, has had a lot of changes and extensions. Apartment 18, the overgrown apartment, is now Helen's apartment, I believe, but it is greatly extended as well. On floor 2, apartment 25 has now been turned into Dan's apartment, which you can explore with Dan. Apartment 28 across from Dan's is the underwater apartment inhabited by Summer. Lee's apartment on floor 2 has now received an extension as part of her quest. You can come back here and she does have an apartment, not just a black hole. On floor 3, Sybil's current apartment, apartment 35, is now accessible. Lastly, at the end of the hall, apartment 38 on floor 3 is now open and inhabited by Lewis, Charlie, Pierre, and Kaylee. Outside of the apartments, the parking lot got an extension in the south corner. There's now a couple of rooms attached to a very large hole that you can jump into. There's an NPC in there that leads you to another new area. Besides that, there's a new fuse box room that is open during the blackout event next to the elevator in the basement. Also in the basement is access to the crossword tombs, which are found through a locked safe in one of the utility closets. It's an area directly related to one of the new endings. There's too many extensions and additions to existing areas to really mention, but the 2 other huge additions are the Dark Dimension areas and Meat World. The Dark Dimension areas are all attached to one of the new endings and are accessible through different secret areas around the map. Meat World is a bizarro version of almost the entire apartment complex, somewhat simplified, but the amount of space and areas to explore is pretty massive. Easy to get turned around in here. 2 other areas that deserve special mention is the Easter egg room that is found through the entrance to the parking garage next to Beryl. There's a false wall there that you can enter. And the bizarre room in the basement that leads to the human centipede conga line guy. We're not really sure what's happening with that yet. Speaking of endings, there are 5 new endings in the game. These are Unity and Promise, both related to Sybil and her new quests in the Meat World. Words of Power, which is related to the crossword secret and the crossword tombs I mentioned earlier. The Mask ending, which is related to those Dark Dimension hidden away areas. And the True Final ending, which is kind of a gag ending, but it's also pretty damn awesome, and it's called True Final, so it must be canon. There's been sweeping changes to a lot of the companions' skills and abilities, but 3 of the ones that I want to highlight because they were sort of underpowered are Audrey, Rat Baby, and Sophie. Audrey now has a lot of new options for modifications she can equip as gear, and it does give her additional skills. The Rat Child stats are buffed a bit, the Copy Dad ability works a lot better, and I'm told that he gains unique skills based on the other party members, but I haven't played with him all that much. Sophie now crafts elemental marbles overnight, or she has a chance to anyway, and some of these are completely busted, making Sophie a pretty decent damage dealer under the right conditions. As for new events and interactions, there are many, but I'll point out the more notable ones. The special event Blackout occurs the day after the elevator thing is killed and the elevator turns back on. Blackout is when the whole apartment building loses power and you can't do things like use the elevator or the vending machines or even the planet disk locked rooms. Instead, you have to venture down to the fuse box room in the basement and defeat the electrophage to turn the power back on. The chase sequence from the Grinning Beast on floor 2 at the beginning of the game got a big extension, so now you have to sprint all the way down a vertical hallway after busting through a door and dodge a lot more of Lee's limbs trying to grasp you. The end of this chase sequence has you busting through Jean's front door and scaring the hell out of her, which is pretty fun. The underwater apartment is one huge timed event since you are technically underwater and have a limited oxygen supply to get through this place. It's pretty extensive and leads to a rather difficult boss fight. Convincing Nesta to get infected by Rafter and turning into a giant worm creature now just spills worms all over the apartment complex if you leave his main body alive. There's so many different types of worms, it's pretty crazy. But there's also a little worm vendor that you can sell the worm eggs to, which is fun. Apartment 38 on floor 3 at the end of the hall that's now open has 4 occupants and each one of them has a kind of event attached to them. Lewis, the guy in the green dragon mascot outfit, he ends up spreading around the place kind of like Nestor and the worms. Charlie is an odd fellow infected with like an insect hive infection or something, and he just keeps slowly growing into a giant amalgamation of insects. Pierre is a little clown monster guy who's completely sweet and innocent, but reveals to the player that Sam is terrified of clowns through your interactions. You can actually start receiving therapy from Pierre, which is pretty interesting. Give that a try. Kaylee runs a fun little mini game, I guess, out of her room in the apartment. It's kind of a key hunting mini game where you open up all these locked rooms to get rewards. Just don't use your lockpicks in here or you're gonna break the rules and piss Kaylee off. On day 6, a cave-in will occur which will block off the area in the car park that has the giant hole in it. So if you want to go talk to the NPC Karan and get their quest done, you have to do it before day 6. This brief overview ended up being like 8 minutes long, so let's just loop back around to some of the big things in the update and we'll start fleshing things out. Okay, new companions. So Philippe can now be recruited after you kill him in the fungal labyrinth. You just have to bring the remains of his body back to the apartment and he'll start growing again. You just need to speak to him, be completely delusional about the brain parasite, and try to be his friend as much as possible, and then you have to feed him like you did the rat baby for a couple of days. Once Philippe is fully grown, he can join your party as a fully fledged party member. Asta is the first astronomer you run to on floor 2, and to recruit him, you have to speak to him about joining the astronomers, and then go seek out the other 3 astronomers, Aurelius on floor 1, Jasper on the ground floor, and Beryl in the basement. Once you've spoken to all 3, return to Asta and make sure that you've recruited no more than 3 teammates in your run, and Asta will join you. Lyle is pretty simple. All you have to do is continue his quest like you normally do. Get the photograph, make sure to give him a kiss, make him develop the photograph, make sure to give him a kiss again, and then he should just rock up at your apartment the next day. He's already stolen your spare key and lets himself in. Spine is an interesting one. She is a temporary companion, and in order to get her, you have to do a few things. Number one, you have to make friends with Spine by fighting her until she's almost dead, but not quite killing her, and also don't die in the process. She'll stop the fight and start talking to you normally. Then you have to revisit her a couple of times and just chat. After that, return to her apartment alone as Sam and use one of these sapper charges you get from the landlord's apartment to blow up the boulder that's in front of the iris key door to the south of her apartment. If you put an iris key in and enter Meat World, Spine will actually jump in and join you so you don't have to go alone. Spider is the most recently discovered companion and also the hardest to recruit. To get him, you have to go around the apartment complex at max danger level and kill the 5 boss shadows that spawn. These are the question mark guys. You can tell which ones are the major ones because of the heavy breathing soundtrack that starts when they rock up. There should be one on each floor, 3, 2, 1 ground floor and basement. Once you've done that and are max danger level, you have to go alone as Sam to the bottom of the staircase in the apartment complex and interact with a door that's hidden under the stairs. Just kind of walk under there and start spam and interact, and it should say there's some kind of a door here. Once you enter this part of the dark dimension, get ready for a fight because the crawling shade is in here and he is pretty tough. Once you beat him, keep exploring to the northern part of the map until you find a level transition and you'll end up in a room with Spider. Spider will have a conversation with you, and it's pretty tricky to get the battle required for his recruitment to actually initiate. The dialogue options here are really unique to each one of the companions that you've recruited so far in that run. But essentially, you have to come across compassionate, but somewhat cowardice and weak. So if he asks you about Joel, for instance, you have to say, oh, I needed the help, I was lonely, or something. And Spider will somewhat chastise you for leaning so heavily on a child, but will be somewhat understanding that you needed the assistance. The end result that you're trying to achieve through this conversation is to get Spider to believe that Sam should be mercy killed because he won't survive the trials that are to come. So coming across too headstrong will ruin this interaction for your run. Once Spider does decide that Sam is too weak and starts the battle, you have to deal a significant amount of damage to him before he'll turn around and ask, how are you so weak of mind but yet so powerful? This line of questioning will end the battle and allow Spider to join you as a companion, as he is quite intrigued to the paradoxical nature of the human experience. All 5 of the new companions are pretty awesome. They're very powerful, maybe the exception of Asta, who is sort of more of a control buffer, debuffer kind of character. But Philippe, Lyle, Spine, and especially Spider deal out nutty damage. They're worth giving a shot. Onto the new endings. I'll briefly go over the requirements because a few of these are really complicated. Let's start with the least complicated of the new endings and work our way up to Unity. The simplest of the new endings to achieve is the crossword ending, Words of Power. The only thing you have to do to get this is to complete the crossword book that you get from Lyle's apartment. It will give you a code. then go down into the basement and punch the code into a safe in the utility closet. It's unlocked by the Pluto Earth disk. Once you go into the crossword tomb, you just have to speak the word of power that Auntie Wilma asks of you, and you get the ending. The next ending, the true final ending, I'll just do in bullet points because it's fun to experience yourself. Get Massacre Princess, the video game, learn the skill Meteor Strike, do the perfect ritual ending, but talk to the astronomers about how you would kill the visitor, and then once you interact with a visitor, choose to attack it and use the Meteor Strike skill in the battle. You'll be able to tell when the Meteor Strike is ready because it should cost 1 stamina. Play through the rest of the game and you'll get this ending. The next 3 endings are complicated enough that they require a full guide, which I will put out later, but for the time being, here's the dot points. For the mask ending, you must befriend the Shadow, go through all those interactions with him. You must then locate the 4 strange offerings that are in the Dark Dimension secret areas. There's one through the elevator, there's one in the landlord's apartment, there's one in Spine's apartment, and another one in the pit underneath Charan in the car park. Give these 4 strange offerings in place of the normal offerings for the perfect ritual ending, and then go up to the roof. Once the ritual begins, you've got quite a few fights back to back in order to earn this ending. The last 2 endings, Unity and Promise, are both related to interactions with Sybil. For the Promise ending, you have to present Sybil with the fixed telescope and promise her that you will keep your word. Afterwards, you can progress with the perfect ritual ending and you will receive the Promise ending instead. For the Unity ending, refuse to keep the promise for Sybil, kill her in a crazy boss fight in Meat World, pick up the red key, go back to Sybil's original apartment on floor 1, apartment 12, go into the secret area and find the note. Reading this note will grant you the Unity ending. As I said in the video last week when the patch came out, Final Vision has so much content, it's actually pretty crazy. I haven't really covered that much in this video, only the big bits. The level of detail that Frank has put into the Final Vision is incredible. There is just so much interacting here. It's going to take a long time to figure out all of these intricacies. For the time being, however, I just want to give a big shout out to the Look Outside community for being able to dig into this update and figure out so many of the secrets and hidden things so damn quickly. It honestly is impressive. Special mention to the secret hunters on the Look Outside Discord that finally cracked the code to recruit Spider recently. Kitty Techie, Thermic Seeker 47, Foiled Again, Akimi and Kia, hope I'm saying that right, and Drip Mafia Sentry. I've been led to believe these guys were instrumental in that discovery. Extremely impressive work. Nicely done. If you know of anybody that I've missed who contributed to this achievement, please tag them in the comments. That would be appreciated. That's it for me for the time being. I'll be back with more info dumps and challenge runs very soon. Hope you have fun with the Final Vision. See you next time.
Cheese man, cheese man.
Who keeps saying cheese man?
Cheese man.